So it was just over 2 years ago that I purchased myself a cheap 2010 Toyota RAV4. And ever since I made the first year update on that car about just over a year ago, I have been inundated with nothing but questions about it. And I've also received some crazy news not that long ago. So today on the driveway, we're going for the 2-year update of ownership on my cheap 2010 Toyota RAV4. All right, guys, so we're going to kick off our walkthrough today with the beginning. And I don't just mean the beginning of the video, I mean regards to the most asked question that I ever got in regards to the last update I did on this car. And that is, how much did you pay for this thing? Well, if you weren't listening in the very beginning, let me reiterate. I bought this Barcelona Red 2010 Toyota RAV4 Sport 4-cylinder 2-wheel drive from Fred Haas Toyota Country in Tomball, Texas. I bought it on March 2nd, 2019 with 116,000 miles. And here comes the big bit. I paid $10,500 for this car out the door. Now, to some people, you're like, you paid 10 grand for an over 10-year-old crossover? Yes, I did. But I still consider it a heck of a deal because, as I work in the dealership business myself, I did not pay any of the dealership's sort of minuscule fees or anything like that. I paid for this thing straight up. And it was a one-owner vehicle. It had only had a minor damage report on the Carfax showing that it was slightly rear-ended around in this area. However, I did get the damage reports, and the damage was only to the paintwork. It was not actually a full bumper replacement. Ever since then, I have put about 23,000 miles on this car in 2 years, which is right around average for most US drivers. Most people say the average is between 10 and 12,000 miles a year, so I would say that that number is right on the money. Now, I did mention in the beginning that I have some crazy news to talk about with this car, and it has to do with the pre-owned car market. At this point in time, on this day, the car market is going insane, especially with the semiconductor chip shortage. Now, I've had a lot of people asking me, am I ever going to sell this RAV4? And the answer is, yeah, eventually I probably will. I'll probably drive it to 200,000 miles or so before I probably get rid of it. But I've had people asking or telling me that I should trade it in. So for a little bit of a giggle, I decided to go on a couple of different car buying websites. I went to Carvana and I went to Vroom to see exactly how much they would offer me on my car. Now, at this current point, just to give you a little bit of personal information, I owe about $5,500 on this RAV4 over those next, I think, 15 or 16 payments that I have left. So when I went to Vroom, this was the offer that they sent me, $5,125. And that's considering a little bit lower mileage than I have on the car right now. I've been driving this thing quite a bit, but with around the mileage that I have on it now, Carvana actually came through in spades. Look at this. They wanted to offer me just around $6,500 to buy this car off of me, which leaves me with a little bit of a predicament. Do I go ahead and sell the car and make around $1,000 or so, or do I wait to pay it off and end up having maybe $2,500 to $3,000 to put towards another car? You can probably guess what my answer is. I obviously want to keep this car as long as I can and then ultimately trade it in on something else. Now, in the first year update, I talked about the fact that this car needed a lot of work when I first picked it up. Not even 3 days after I picked this thing up, it made a sound kind of like putting a bunch of marbles in a coffee can and shaking it up violently. And basically what that turned out to be is a major issue with the 4-cylinder variants of this generation of RAV4. In case you guys don't know, this generation of RAV4 was built from 2007 to 2012. And the 2.5 liter 4-cylinder Camry motor underneath was primarily known for shredding cam gear teeth. Now, this car does not run on a timing belt, it runs on a timing chain. And with losing cam gear teeth, that means that not only could the timing chain come loose, it could break altogether. So, because the technician at Fred Haas Toyota Country who went through this car did not discover this until later on, Toyota ended up fitting the bill for it. Not only do I have have a fully rebuilt top end of the motor on this thing, but I also got new brakes, new tires. They basically went through the whole car with a fine-tooth comb, and in the end, I essentially got a half brand new 2010 RAV4. Now, cosmetically, it is not brand new. I have still yet to find the tow hook cover here for the front. I found them on eBay, but they're all located in China and would take an eternity to get here down to Houston. On other notes, I mean, the tires, they are starting to get a little bit worn down. Like I said, I've put about 23,000 miles in this car. It's currently sitting at just over 139,500 miles on the odometer as of today, May 13th, 2021. But I mean, looking at the tires, you know, these are definitely not the greatest tires in the world. The wear bars are getting pretty close to being break even with the tread, which would mean that I need to replace these in the future. So let me know in the comments what tire you would recommend for this car. I know the size and I have an idea of which tire I want to go with, but I want to hear your recommendations, because personally I would love to fit some Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's on these, but I don't think they make them in this size, and I don't necessarily know that they're made for this car. Now, ever since all the engine work has been done on this thing, this car has been running absolutely flawlessly. I did also tell you guys that I had the alternator replaced, and seeing where it is, to be honest, I just was not willing to screw with it, so I ended up paying about 250 bucks to get that done at Fred Haas Toyota Country. They ended up fitting the bill for a good bit of it because Toyota wanted $800 to replace the alternator and put it in. Either that, or they were just telling me it was 800 bucks just to get a new one, which if it was $800 on its own for just that little thing right there, I would have told them they need to go to a mental asylum, because that is just way too much money for something like this, especially on a car this old. But that being said, if you are looking for a decent gas mileage SUV or crossover of this size, try to go for the 4-cylinder one. The V6s, they're great, but they drink a good bit of gas. But either way, these cars are known for going a long ways. And now we get to the most recent repair that I've had on my RAV4, which is the front struts. And when I tell you guys these things were bad, well, I was not lying. I mean, take a look at these. Now, supposedly these are not the original struts that were on the car, but I mean, look at this. The boots were completely shredded. All of the grease had leaked out, and basically I was riding around on rocks, essentially. It was extremely bad riding this thing around like it was. But thanks to my friends at Advanced Auto Parts, and also with a special shout out to O'Reilly Auto Parts for loaning me one of their tools, I got a brand new set of OEM spec struts. And these things, pardon my French, were a bitch to put in. It took my girlfriend and I around 2.5 hours to actually put both of them in. But if you guys need to know how hard it is, I wish I could have made a how-to video, but I just didn't have enough time. I really just wanted to get it done. But in essence, there are 3 bolts holding the struts in up here. Those are pretty easy to get to, but there are 3 more under here. There is a small one for the sway bar end link, which you may not be able to see way up in there. And there are 2 main ones that hold the strut itself to the hub where the brake and everything is attached. Now, torquing these bolts down is not that hard. The one for the sway bar end link takes about 55 foot-pounds on a torque wrench to do. The ones on the upper part, those are about 35 foot-pounds. But if you want a hell of a workout, try putting on the 2 main bolts that connect the hub to the strut itself. 177 foot-pounds per bolt. I'm telling you what, I was in pain for about 3 days after doing leg day and arm day, and possibly with some upper body workouts thrown in as well. For both my girlfriend and myself, we managed to get those things put in on our own. And I'm gonna tell you guys, it has changed the way this car drives completely. But as with any used vehicle, it is not all sunshine and roses. For starters, cosmetically, you can see there are quite a few rock chips here in the front of this car. I'm not one of those like overly crazy people that would put paint protection film on something like this. I mean, it's a $10,000 Toyota, go figure. Also, the Texas sun is starting to have its way with the headlights, so the top of them are starting to turn yellow, but no worries because I am a detailer and I have all the stuff to take care of those. Apart from that, I do still have a long key scratch that has started to fade a little bit going down the side of the car all the way down here to the worst part of it, which is in this area here. Now, I was told when I bought the car originally that the previous owner stored it in the garage with a bunch of bicycles, and I'm assuming that one of those bikes rolled all the way down and kind of skittered down the back of the car and fell on the ground, leaving that nasty, ugly scar on the right-hand side. Also, the right rear taillight still has a bit of a hole punched in it, a couple of little stars in there. But overall, I mean, she's in pretty good shape. But the one part about this thing that I'm most pissed off about is one of the people at my job decided it was a good idea to throw the door from their big lifted GMC Sierra into the side of the car, taking off a huge chunk of paint. There was actually a big white paint transfer going up here beforehand, but I managed to get that off. But they left this huge, ugly dent right here in the middle of my left rear door. So that was a bit of a pain in the butt. But other than that, cosmetically, she is looking still just as the day she rolled off the dealer lot. Aside from the outside, everything else is doing very, very well. The interior could use a little bit of a vacuum at this point, but for the most part, my girl and I keep it very, very clean. We always keep like some napkins in here. We keep our masks hidden around the shifter. And of course, I don't have Bluetooth, so I have to keep my USB charging cord and auxiliary cord in here if I want to listen to my favorite music. Now we'll go ahead and get in. We'll start her up. And I'm not sure if you can see the dash, but that says 139,504 miles. And yes, I know my TPMS light is on as well. However, it is not down to the 4 main tires that I have. This car has a tire pressure monitoring system that is also wired to the spare tire on the rear of the car. And unfortunately, that spare tire is completely dry rotted. It looks gross. We had a small flat recently where we had a screw head go through the left rear tire, and we had to put that spare on there, and the thing held just enough air to get us to the tire shop to get the main tire fixed before we took it off, and we have not used it since. So yes, I know that light's on, but other than that, she is doing absolutely fantastic. Of course, I have some nice little decorations on the mirror as well. My girlfriend added her own little Pusheen cat plushie up there on the mirror as well. But other than that, everything else in here is running and looking as it should. And just to show you kind of how clean we keep it, you look here in the back, and the only thing we have back here, these are all the torque specs and tools that I had to get for replacing the socket. And then of course I had to buy some brand new jack stands as well because my other ones were rusted and basically falling apart. And then of course, seeing how unpredictable the weather can be here in Houston, we keep our rain jackets in here as well. And that wraps up my 2-year update on the 2010 RAV4. If you guys like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And also, while you're at it, hit that subscribe button down below, because trust me, it will benefit the both of us in the end. But at the end of the day, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see y'all next time. Take care. Stay safe.